See my screen okay?
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, so my name's Cory Barker. I'm a senior consultant with IntegriTouch. Basically, I'm a subcontractor for VMware Professional Services. So I'm out and about traveling normally. I guess the silver lining to COVID is that I get to enjoy a home life now. So small wins. I have a couple of certifications that I went after this year. I'm a V-expert since 2017. I run my own blog site called CaptainVops.com, and you can find me on Twitter. One that I'm typically more active on is at Cory Barker, and then if you want just straight technical blogs, then those would be coming out of my Captain VOps Twitter handle. So today I'm going to kind of discuss Home Labs, how I think they can improve your professional growth and career, how you can use the community as a resource to build out your home lab, gaining access to VMware installation packages, some of the knowledge that can be obtained in a home lab, if you don't have access to play in a production environment as much as you want to. And then also my pitch to you to go out and actually share the knowledge that you gained back to the V community and kind of feed back into, just the overall community as a whole. So, I mean, there's several types of home labs. Most people, will kind of go for the cheaper approach first. So that would kind of fall in line with VMware Workstation if you're running on a PC, or a Fusion solution if you're running on Mac OS. This can be done via an existing laptop or desktop that you already have. And your costs, typically run anywhere from 160 to, 250, roughly, plus any additional licensing costs. Then there's the little more advanced type of VMware Home Labs. These actually run on physical hardware. So what you'll find if you actually do a quick Google search, Intel NUCs are very popular in the community. And there's several blogs out there about using Intel NUCs. And then kind of the new kid on the street within the past couple of years, I would say, would be a Supermicro. Has some really nice micro servers. These are going to be a little more expensive, but I find that they're a little more, real world. As far as, these typically have your Intel Xeon server class processors. You're using server grade memory in these Supermicros versus the Intel NUCs, which are a little more consumer based. So consumer processors, consumer memory, same type of stuff you would find in like your personal laptop or PC, or desktop. Some members of the community actually utilize retired server hardware. So, maybe your particular employer has a hardware refresh cycle and they take their old hardware and throw it out on eBay to, try to get rid of it and recoup some of those losses. Or maybe you're just searching eBay for retired hardware, but you'll actually find a couple members in the community that have actually posted pictures of their home labs that kind of look like micro data centers, stuffed away in a closet or running in their garages or basements at home. So, I mean, obviously these are you know, kind of really true to point as far as, you know, what you might actually find in a production data center. But, you know, obviously there's going to be more costs associated with that, you know, heat and power consumption obviously would be big. So I guess that's my my big caution about using retired servers. But you know, as home labbers in general, we all have our own individual use cases, but we all share a common goal of furthering our knowledge with VMware. And it's not, you know, strictly VMware related. You could also be utilizing ecosystem partners in your VMware Home Lab as well, or, you know, automation is a desired skill set nowadays. So, you know, if you're someone like me who automation you're very weak on, then, you know, maybe you're using your home lab to kind of build those automation skills. Now, Intel NUCs and super microsystems, or even other similar microservers, make really good vSAN node clusters. So if vSAN is something that you're after, you want to get experience and exposure with, you know, these systems are great for, you know, loading up with disks and then, you know, creating vSAN clusters. One word of caution I will kind of throw out there is vSAN itself is not really meant to be powered on and powered off, kind of like a typical home PC would be. And I've heard quite a few horror stories of you know, people powering on and off their vSAN clusters in their home labs, and you know, eventually they kind of have a meltdown. Things go sideways on them, and it gets ugly. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. The nice thing about Intel NUCs or super microsystems or other smaller microservers is that they are very green as far as, you know, the amount of power that they consume, and in most cases you're looking at a power consumption around like a laptop or a desktop. So, you know, me personally, I have super microsystems, and you know, I just kind of leave those run all the time, and you know, don't even give them a second thought. So here's just kind of, you know, a couple of examples I pulled off from the internet, different types of home labs people are running. You can see upper left corner, we have an Intel NUC system, you know, 3-node. I'm going to assume that they're running a vSAN cluster, but they do also have a Synology NAS below that. So, you know, who knows, maybe they're using a combination of both. In the center, we have a couple of different super micro systems. Actually, mine is more resembles the one on the bottom there. And then we also have your more traditional, you know, perhaps retired hardware that was purchased, you know, example on the right. Now, advantages of running a vSphere home lab in a workstation type of environment. The nice thing about being everything, you know, having everything virtual is that you don't really need the physical routing equipment other than what you have already invested in your, you know, home network. You know, your typical modem and router. You know, that's all you really need. It's quick. For deployment testing, you can use an existing laptop or desktop, you know, assuming that you have something with a lot of memory or a lot of CPU, and then it's minimal power consumption. Again, you know, we're kind of thinking green here in this day and age. Now, this is something, even though I have a physical home lab, I also have a VMware workstation-based home lab. As a traveling consultant, sometimes, you know, I can't reach my home lab, so it's nice just to be able to have an environment spin up on my laptop that I take with me on the road to be able to test something out. Now, advantages of running a vSphere home lab on physical hardware. Physical hardware, you're looking at a type 1 hypervisor type of deployment, right? So you're going to get better performance. You're going to get a just better experience altogether. Physical hardware, running vSphere on physical hardware, it also gives you the capabilities of expanding your home lab. Whereas if you're running on a VMware Workstation or VMware Fusion, you're kind of locked in to whatever hardware that you have available on that system. Whereas if you're running a VMware Home Lab on physical hardware, much like you can in a real data center, you can actually buy additional nodes and expand out your home lab, as you see fit. This is kind of a picture of my own home lab that I have here on my right, the right side of the screen here. You can see that I have a physical, deployment, much like you would see in production. But the other nicety about having physical hardware is that you can also run nested labs inside that. Inside that environment. So in this example here, I have a nested VMware Cloud Director environment that I'm running in conjunction with my lab. So, you got some decisions to make when you're trying to figure out, what's the best option for you. Do you want a physical lab or do you want a more virtual lab? And, what I always tell people is, try to think, what is the lab actually going to be used for? What are you actually trying to achieve with the lab? Do you want to go as, heavy as possible, multiple VMware appliances, virtual machines? So you want to go big, or do you want to just spin up a VM or two for testing? Did I jump ahead? No, okay. Now, the benefit of using physical hardware over something like VMware Workstation and Fusion, as I kind of stated before, ESXi is a type 1 hypervisor, whereas, VMware Workstation Fusion is more type 2. So type 1 hypervisors, the sequence, typically looks like, you have your virtual machine, you have your hypervisor, ESXi, Hyper-V, etc. And then you have the underlayer, the hardware itself, the RAM CPU. Type 2 hypervisors, you have your virtual machines, you have the hypervisor level, so, VMware Workstation, Fusion, maybe you're using VirtualBox. You have your base OS, so whatever that system that you happen to be running this on is running. And then, you have the hardware underneath. So to me, the biggest takeaway here is, less layers means better performance in your home lab. If there's a desire to go VM heavy, I would personally tell you to stick with physical hardware, your Intel NUCs, your Supermicro systems. And as I touched on before, ESXi was built for clustering. So, as your home lab, grows out more, you can add, more hardware to it to kind of give yourself more capacity. If you're just playing with a VM or two, and, maybe you don't have a big budget, then VMware Workstation is going to be the way to go for you, really, to be able to kind of test things out. You can still deploy nested ESXi into VMware Workstation or Fusion. You can still deploy vCenter in there. It's just not you're going to be limited to whatever hardware you have in that system that you're running Workstation or Fusion on. So we kind of come to the VMware licenses bit, right? So that's kind of the sticking point for a lot of people. And this is a shameless plug for the VMUG Advantage program. So for those of you that don't know, if you're a VMUG Advantage member, if you're, willing to, pay the $200, then you get 365-day evaluation licenses for quite a few, VMware solutions that are out there in the market that, you can actually deploy in a production environment. You could actually get licenses to, utilize in your home lab, which is really nice. So, perhaps there's a particular product that you want to deploy into your production environment at work, but you just don't have the cycles or they don't have the resources for it. Perfect example here is that you can get it deployed in your home lab. You can get comfortable with it. You can come up with use cases, and then you can kind of take those use cases and present it to your leadership team at wherever you happen to be working. There's also the VMware vExpert program. So let's say you are contributing to the community, and you have blogs, you're doing VMUG presentations. Maybe you're lucky enough to actually give a VMworld presentation when and if we ever have a live VMworld again. You can kind of give back to the community through those methods, and then every year they do a vExpert application process where you can actually sign up to be a vExpert, and then that team that actually evaluates who's contributing to the community can actually go back and look at your stuff. The point to my rambling here is that many of the VMUG Advantage licenses that you pay for to have access to, the vExpert program has benefits where you can actually get some of those licenses, for nothing, as long as you're an active vExpert. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. But you can see here with the VMUG Advantage membership, the various different solutions that you have access to, that you have licenses for, to be able to, level up your VMware skills. If you want to find out more, there's their website to where you can go check out the Advantage membership program. So, sometimes it's kind of hard to get started. What I always tell people, if they're interested in building out a home lab, sometimes they say, how do I do it? How did you do it? Where did you get started? And I tell them simply, go to your favorite search engine and type in VMware Home Labs. We're all a bunch of geeks. We're all going to share our configuration with the community, and be able to assist others with building out their home labs. So there's a tremendous amount of resources out there as far as you being able to look and see what type of hardware, type of configuration other members of the community are using for their own home labs. And then a lot of them are point A to point Z as far as walk through and how they actually set theirs up. So if you're just a complete novice coming into VMware, those are really helpful to kind of get yourself going. Production data centers are built around specific use cases. Whatever company you happen to be working for, whatever market that they happen to be in. I would say home labs are also built around specific use cases. Maybe you want to learn automation, maybe you want to get more comfortable with just VMware technologies in general, or like I said, that third-party ecosystem that's out there. Whatever the case may be, the VMware Home Labs are a great utility for studying for industry certifications as well. So recently I re-upped my VCP. Data center virtualization for 2020. I also did a VCAP deploy this year. or excuse me, a VCAP design this year, and I'll be also doing the deploy later on. But my home lab is instrumental, giving me a place to actually study without worrying about stepping on anybody else. So, you open up your search engine and you just type in VMware Home Labs. You can reach out to the V community. We actually have a hashtag V community Twitter handle out there. Anybody in the community can kind of respond to you on Twitter. And we're home labbers, we're geeks. If you don't know where to start, we'll be happy to get you going, and we'll encourage you to do the same. So from my own personal experience, some of the knowledge that's gained in a home lab, if you're just starting out in your VMware career, a lack of confidence while, talking about a typical product or upgrade can weaken your position. So, people kind of, smell uncertainty like sharks smell blood in the water, as I find out. And, if you walk into a conversation very uncertain and you're trying to justify your position, it can be an uphill battle. So, I daily use my home lab, especially for doing work for PSO. If a customer asks me to do something, I'm going to do it first in my home lab if I don't already have that experience. Home labs are sandbox playgrounds. They really are. I think a couple of us have, seen how bad production outages can be. Maybe even some of us have actually caused production outages. A VMware Home Lab, it's a safe place where you can actually, tear down, rebuild. You can make mistakes. You can learn from those mistakes. It's a judgment-free zone where, knowledge can be acquired at your own pace. Home labs, great place for testing upgrades. So maybe you're not familiar, with an upgrade process. There's a difference between updating vCenter versus upgrading vCenter. So, maybe you've never done that before and you actually want to test it out in your home lab first, or, any of the VMware products out there, or any of the third-party products that you're testing. As we kind of touched on before, automation is a desired skill set. Certainly not anything that I went to college for. I've spent many years resisting it because, hey, that's developers. That's what they do. I honestly, to this day, aside from having a Power CLI Rolodex and, being able to pull up commands, most of what I do is still manual process, and that's just the PSO by nature. If you have scripts ready to go, then sometimes it can save your butt, but, more often than not, you're going to be doing a manual process, and, having a home lab to keep those skills sharp is key. Having a home lab gives you various exposure to VMware platforms, solutions that your current business or employer may not actually have deployed in their environment. So, you can kind of level up and have those skills. So if maybe this year or next you're going to be deploying that solution, how much nicer it would be to, learn that at your own pace in your home lab, and then you can kind of be the hero, on your own team when it comes time to actually get that deployed, because you'll already have that knowledge. You can become a subject matter expert on that particular product, if you really want to be heavily vested in it and, really get down deep in the weeds. Being able to play with it in your home lab is great. Home labs can be rebuilt over and over again. For me, I find repetition is the greatest teacher. If I just quickly deploy something and then I move on, that information is going to evaporate over time. Whereas, if I can rebuild it over and over and over again, eventually it sticks, and it's kind of like riding a bike for me. And in many cases, VMware offers 60-day trials, with their products out of the box. So if you don't actually have a license key to, fully activate it for the year or, however many years, 60 days is still, quite a lot of time to actually be able to play with something and, kind of get comfortable with it. And then, of course, you get your VMUG Advantage program, or the vExpert program as well. So as I tell people, as you're building out a home lab, as you're leveling up your skills in, particular VMware products, why not take that opportunity to, share back to the community? When I first started, literally, I didn't have that much VMware knowledge when I first kind of got thrown in the deep end. And literally, I started with a company that was a cloud provider, using VMware Cloud Director. And, I didn't start out on like the help desk learning how to troubleshoot stuff. No, I was tossed right into the deep end. Being a cloud engineer, expected to know how to build and interact with these large cloud environments that host thousands of customers. So instinctively, what I did is created a lot of notes. How to do this, how to do that. What does this error message mean? And eventually, one particular product that I did that a lot with was vRealize Operations. Starting out in its early 6.0 days, after it switched from being vCops to vRops, I didn't really have the experience with the product. So I'm continuously making notes, anytime the product kind of fell over or, crapped the bed, so to speak, and I had to call up VMware support, I'm making notes on, what they're doing, how they're fixing it. And then that way, sure enough, I can go back and, fix it if I ever come across that problem again. So eventually I took all those notes, created a blog site, and that's kind of how Captain VOps came to be, is me sharing all my experiences with VRops. And then that slowly morphed into, just straight, vSphere and Power CLI and, what little automation I've done here and there. Specific use cases still exist, but sometimes we just need to see a different approach to a problem in order to solve our own problems. So, maybe somebody out there in the community has not seen the exact error message that you're getting in your home lab, if you're trying to familiarize yourself with the deployment. But a lot of times, you can kind of have a conversation with people and they may not have the specific answer to whatever problem you're having, but sometimes just by talking to them, they can kind of get you thinking a little bit differently and kind of send you down a different troubleshooting path. So that's why I always encourage people, share. We're all in this together. It's also a great way of putting yourself out there. So like I said, I started, giving back to the community through my blog site, and that kind of transitioned me into being in the vExpert program. Eventually that transitioned into me actually being able to participate in VMUG UserCons and actually being able to give presentations like this. It's also a great way of getting your name and brand out there. I can't tell you how often I've actually gone through interviews, talked with other companies, and they're like, yeah, we know your blog site. And, it kind of alleviates that stress going in if they already know what you're about. It's kind of cool. Having that activity in the V community, through blogs, maybe you're doing YouTube videos, podcasts, can open new doors for professional growth opportunities. The V community is large, and, quite often, during COVID or just, regular reduction in force, or rifts that happen throughout the industry, people tend to fall back on the community and, reach out to everyone on Twitter and say, hey, I've been let go for, the company downsized, or, quite often this year it was COVID related. Being able to lean on the V community to kind of help you, find new opportunities, find a new career, is really cool. So we kind of have each other's backs in that regard. So why do I think a VMware Home Lab can accelerate your professional growth and career? I think a home lab is very beneficial, while you're actually training for a new certification. They provide a place for, engineers, systems administrators, and what have you can further advance their engineering skills, potentially opening those doors for, maybe a new career or maybe a promotion at the company that you happen to be working for currently. It's also a great way to actually show existing and future employers your knowledge and skills in virtualization technologies. And, I found that sometimes resumes just can't convey the message alone, and being able to, quickly pull up your blog site, or, be able to pull up your home lab while you're in an interview and say, hey, look, this is my environment, and just be able to geek out, with other engineers that happen to be interviewing you, can be very beneficial. Home labs are accumulation of knowledge and skills gained over time. They don't, like I said, they don't always have to focus on VMware. You could be, let's say, utilizing DR products like Zerto, in your home lab to, test them out and, get comfortable with them. Home labs also give you that platform to engage with other people in the community through blogs, YouTube videos, etc. Being engaged in the community can also, lead to speaking engagements like VMUG, user cons, and like I said, maybe even VMworld. The potential of becoming a VMware vExpert if you choose to apply to that program. New professional connections. There's many of us in the V community, and being able to, kind of create those connections. You get talking to these people through Twitter, and then, maybe both of you are going to be at VMworld and you want to get together and, actually meet in person. And I think that's really cool. And all that can open doors to new exciting career opportunities. So kind of touching a little bit on being a VMware vExpert, there's many vExperts in the community. We're well over 1,000 in membership, and it's all over the world. Any place that has modern technology, has internet, has servers, you're probably going to find a VMware vExpert. That kind of leans into professional networking. Like I said, potentially opening up new career opportunities. Access to licenses. Like I said, many, if not all, the VMUG Advantage license are available to vExperts for free. We can't share those licenses. Those are ours and ours alone, but that's still something really cool that helps us, kind of stay engaged with the community. It helps us, be able to put out more blog content. Really, we are a free PR resource for VMware and, other third parties in the ecosystem out there. If they give us free licenses, then we can, familiarize ourselves and, gush over, how cool we think their technology is. So it's just a nice little benefit to have. So, this is just kind of a picture of my own home lab. I have a couple super micro systems, and then, I have a couple QNAPs. So I'm not running vSAN in my environment because I only have 2 hosts here. So I have, boatloads of storage available for, on my NAS, and I have an expansion bay here. So, I'm just serving up storage from my QNAPs to my lab, and it works well. But that's pretty much the end of my presentation. So if anybody has any questions about home labs, or maybe you have your own home lab and you want to talk about it, I guess now's the time. Thank you.
Cory, thank you so much. This is Paul speaking here. And a couple of thoughts. When you did the consulting thing, I was in professional services as well. And I totally forgot to even mention that in my presentation earlier today, that I literally would rehearse stuff on Saturday before hopping up on a plane 6 a.m. on a Monday and installing it at the customer site noon on Monday, having just done it 2 days earlier and rehearsed it. And I was doing that as recently as last summer, actually, and one of the jobs I had, the hands-on stuff. Super invaluable, right? To walk into the customer site and they know I just did a 6.7 update, 3 update that weekend on my VCSA and my ESXi hosts, knowing full well any bumps in the road I might run into. It worked out great, and there's nothing like that credibility of having just done it. Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, it's saved my butt quite a few times. I mean, sometimes, you know, if you're, I mean, there's two different types of PSO engagements, which, you know, you're aware. There's SOWs, which are statement of works. Those are very targeted as far as what you're there for. And then there's residencies where you have a little more leniency as far as, you know, length of time and being able to troubleshoot something. But yeah, I mean, having a home lab is invaluable. You know, just being able to, you know, test something out there and then, you know, be prepared for the customer is, it's great.
Awesome stuff, Cory. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.